Welcome to the Healing for Male Survivors podcast. This is a podcast for male survivors of sexual abuse and assault, whether as a child or as an adult. Know that you are not alone and the abuse was not your fault. My name is Mike Chapman. I'm a certified recovery life coach and also a survivor. Let's find hope and healing together. And welcome to the Healing for Male Survivors podcast. I'm your host, Mike Chapman. And with me today, I have Peter W. And I'll read his intro in a moment. And we also have a live audience here today with us. And like every week, if you are here live, we will honor anonymity. We will only say your name if you manually type it in with your question or comment. And if you would like to join us live for future podcast episodes, you can learn more about how to do so at polarlifeconsulting.com/live. And let me introduce Peter. Peter W., who recently turned 60, has been married for over 36 years and has 3 children. He has struggled with depression, anxiety, and suicidal thoughts for many years and sought help at a residential program 2 years ago. During his time in the program, he opened up for the first time about a sexual assault he experienced at age 26. While he has been working through this trauma in therapy, he was recently assaulted again. Since then, other incidents triggered repressed memories of childhood sexual abuse. Despite these challenges, Peter is in recovery and hopes that sharing his story will help others. And we will learn more about Peter in a moment, but we'll start the episode like we do most episodes with 4 questions. Now it's time for 4 questions, that part of the podcast when we get to know our guest a bit better by asking a few questions. Let's go. So, Peter, what is your favorite food memory?
I have to say I've had a lot of different favorite food memories, but the most favorite food memory I have is probably a very strange one. It was a baked spaghetti casserole that my mother used to make.
Oh, yes, my wife makes those as well, yes.
Yes, a lot of people say baked spaghetti casserole. What is that? That's basically it's spaghetti that's been made with sauce and the meat sauce. It's put into a container and then it's just baked with more cheese on top of it. And it just, I've always enjoyed pasta. I've always enjoyed spaghetti, but the baked spaghetti casserole as a kid was just great. That even my wife now makes it. Even my kids will talk about the baked spaghetti casserole. So that would be probably my favorite food memory.
And yeah, my wife makes that all the time, and it's a good way to use leftover spaghetti. So you have the regular spaghetti first, and then you just mix it all together, and
Yep.
then make a casserole out of it. And I think she just sprinkles cheese on top that melts for the last 5 minutes that she bakes it, and then
Hmm.
you get little crispy bits, and then you got all the extra cheesiness, and
Yep.
yeah, it's really good. So yeah, I really like that. But yeah, it's not a common thing. So absolutely, but yeah, I do like that. So what is your favorite Christmas or holiday memory?
One of my favorite Christmas memories, I would have to say, is the Christmas story. The story of the little boy that wants a BB gun, and he keeps hearing, but you'll shoot your eye out. And the father that wins the prize of a very French fragile leg lamp that is
Yes, fragile.
predominantly, yes, fragile, that's predominantly put in front of the window and stuff like that. My wife told me, no, I can't go out and buy one of those leg lamps. So my kids all got together and bought me a leg lamp. So,
Oh, good.
yeah. So I would have to say the fun part is just Christmas story sometimes, just that's letting your inner kid just be back out and just have some fun.
Oh yeah, I do love that movie, and that's one that we watch every year. Yeah, a lot of memories of the stress of the holiday season and getting ready for Christmas and all that. They have a lot of nostalgia there. And yeah, it's a great movie. I love that movie. So, what is your favorite church or house of worship memory?
For me, it's been kind of that one is a hard question to
Hmm.
answer. I grew up in a preacher's house, so we spent a lot of time in church
Right.
while he was a pastor, and we were always up on the pedestal. So we always had to be the perfect family, and never could
Mm.
be kids, or never really do things, and recently some other things have changed my kind of feelings towards churches right now. So I really don't have a favorite church or house of worship memory. I mean, I do attend church and stuff like that, but I'm kind of struggling with it right now.
Right.
So really don't have, really can't answer that one in a more of a positive way.
I understand. Absolutely. Yeah. So, do you have a favorite scripture or any inspirational quote that has helped you on your spiritual journey? And what about it speaks to you?
Yeah, a favorite Bible verse that I like, one of the ones that has really struck out to me is Genesis 50:20. It's the story of Joseph and the colorful jacket, and it reads,
Yes.
"But as for you, you meant evil against me, but God meant it for good, in order to bring it about as it is this day to save many people alive."
Hmm.
I have a tattoo for my PTSD, my semicolon, and then at the very bottom of it, I have Genesis 50:20 on it. And it's opened up a lot of different conversations with a lot of, especially younger kids, because they see the tattoo. I also have some stickers with the same thing that is on a lot of my stuff that people see and they start asking questions. And I'm hoping, I mean, man hurt me and meant it for evil, but I know there's a purpose behind it, that God's going to use it for something. So that's
Right.
why I say the Genesis 50:20 verse.
Right. Yes. That God doesn't cause evil to happen, but he can use the bad things that happen in our past for good.
Yes.
Absolutely. And yeah, I agree. So yeah, I love that. Let's see. And now we'll continue on with your story. And you can, like most stories, oftentimes we jump through the timeline as different things happen. And especially yours, you even come out with the intro that, yeah, you have recovered memories that only happened recently. So, yeah, that timeline's going to bounce back and forth, and that's fine. Do whatever you want, whatever makes sense for you in telling your story. And then I would love to hear more about your healing journey as well, what you've done to help you heal, what things you've tried that have not worked, and what things that you've tried that has worked. Would love to learn more about that. And then from there, would love to hear more about what you're doing today, anything else you want to share. Okay? So let
Yep.
me hear more about Peter.
All right. Well, my story, I'm going to be kind of jumping all over the time frame because certain memories have been held back and other memories have been pushed forward. And as they say, healing is not linear. It can be all
Right.
over the place.
Exactly.
As my intro had said, that I've been married for over 36 years. I have three kids. Back when my kids were very young, I was working as a pizza delivery person through one of my jobs, and I would be working a lot of nights and delivering pizzas and just trying to make a living, trying to raise three kids with my wife. It happened back in 1992 where I ran into a situation on mischief night. I went out, standard delivery, went out to a delivery, pull up to an empty house. The house didn't look right. It was dark, wasn't lit up. And something was just telling me something's wrong here. So I walked up to the house, and lo and behold, it was set up for a holdup. And I was held up
Mm.
at gunpoint. I was robbed. They took the pizza, and I must have made some remark about the gun that was pointed at me. And they fired the gun off right beside me and then
Uh-huh.
walked away. So in my rage and in my fit, I got back to my car and I saw them walking down the street. And of course, they were sitting there laughing and carrying on. And I tried running them down with my car, which probably was not the best thing to try doing. Missed them, but I went back to the store and I just said, "Hey, I just got robbed." And I mean, I had been working in pizza delivery. That was always my side hustle for quite a
Right.
few years. So, I mean, it wasn't anything new. I had delivered pizzas for 5, 6 years. I had managed pizza delivery places off and on. And so didn't think really too much about it. Okay, I got robbed. It was the one and only time that it happened in 5 plus years of delivering. No big deal. Next
Right.
night is Halloween night. And that night I was out making deliveries and I was noticing in the areas that I'd been robbed in that things just didn't look right. And I remember walking into the store that night to say, "Hey, we got to be real careful in that area. Things aren't right in that area. I just got this sick feeling that someone's going to get robbed again." in that area, and didn't think too much more about it. Reported it, kept on going into my deliveries, and real late that night, I was given a whole bunch of deliveries to quick deliver before the store closed. So it was like 3 or 4, and lo and behold, I was sent out to the one area where I had gotten robbed the night before. So I go into an apartment building, I walk up to the 3rd floor, it's Halloween night, and knock on a door, and lady yells through the door, "Who is it?" And I said, "Pizza delivery." And she goes, "I didn't order no pizza." And at that point, I saw some masked skeleton people run across the hallway and back down the steps. At that point, I knew I'm the one that they're going to rob again. I was stupid. I got here, and I'm trying to figure out how I get back out and get to my car. So the first thing I did was I moved as much of the money that I had on me, which I had quite a bit on me because I wasn't following regular procedures of dropping the money at the store. And I was able to distribute it through multiple pockets and multiple pockets in my jacket, including 2 pockets that were in the inside of my jacket, and just left a little bit of what I would call seed money for them to take.
Right.
And I was like, okay, they're going to rob me. They're going to take my pizza. I'm going to make it a point to just turn the pizza around, shake it around, and destroy the pizza. So even if they get the pizza, it's already a bad pizza. It's going to be a crappy pizza for them. I walk out the door, and I had known there were 2 guys there. The night before, there were 3 guys that were involved. And so I knew that there were 2 guys there that night because there were 2 that had ran by me that were masked. And I'm walking back down towards my car, and between my car and me, one of the masked ones came out, and I started moving away from him as I could, and didn't realize there was someone behind me. And at that point, I got attacked, and
Wow.
I got knocked down onto the ground. I won't get too visual or graphic, but I got beat up pretty good. And then after they decided that they were done beating up on me, they then pulled me off to the side of the building. And this apartment building was right next to some woods. So they kind of knew the area that they were in. They also knew the area was not really, the people aren't really going to get involved with calling police or anything like that. And they drug me off to the side of the building. And at that point, they sexually assaulted me, held me down, and I was sexually assaulted. My therapist and I, we've talked multiple times back and forth about it, and we strongly believe that I probably disassociated through the whole thing because of how violent the attack was and then how violent the assault was. And then they ran away laughing, and I was able to finally just get up, and I got to my car, and I drove up to a little 7-Eleven store that was up the street. I'm not really quite sure how I got up there because they had knocked my glasses off. I lost my glasses, and I'm blind without glasses.
Right. I understand that completely, especially at night.
Yeah, so I got up to this convenience store, and someone saw me get out of my car, and at that point they called the ambulance, they called the police, and I got picked up by the ambulance and taken to the hospital. The hospital just basically stitched me up, didn't ask me any questions, and of course, me being me, I didn't report about the sexual attack. I just let them stitch up my head and my face from all of that. I had a bunch of stitches up in my lip and up in my head, all bruising all over the place, but I didn't tell them about the sexual assault. The police report was filed, and of course, nothing ever really came of that.
Right.
And it really changed my whole demeanor from there. And 6 months later, it actually put me in the hospital for 31 days with total amnesia, where I couldn't remember exactly what happened, but I couldn't also remember getting married. I couldn't remember the birth of my 3 kids. I couldn't remember much of anything of my personal life.
Right.
So that's when I got diagnosed with the PTSD. I tried therapy for a little while after that, and doctors, and it just never really clicked or worked for me.
Right.
So I just kind of kept quiet about what had happened. I was able to hide it from my wife. I was able to hide it from my kids, and never really said anything more about it.
Right.
But it gave me this heightened security, the heightened sense that PTSD will do for you. And just holding it in, it changed me so much. I started isolating a lot, started really just withdrawing from everything that I could. I worked and became a workaholic basically because if I worked a lot I couldn't be in my mind. If I wasn't working, I was then playing in my mind different things. And the problem is I blame myself for the attack because I knew that something was going to happen in that area that night. So I blame myself on that I let myself get into that. And that's something I'm still working on, is that blame.
Right. Do you now understand that it was not your fault?
I've been told that, and I mean, I've been trying to work through that.
But you still don't believe it, I could tell.
I still have a hard time. I still don't totally believe it. I still say to myself, if I knew it was happening, I knew it didn't look right, why did I do it? It was for greed for the job and that kind of thing. That if I had just said, yeah, this doesn't look right, nope, I'm not doing this, and just skipped and gone on to the next person. If it had been a legitimate pizza order, well, we would have had a pissed off customer that they didn't get their pizza.
Right. And were you allowed to do that? Did your boss allow for that? It's like a sketchy area. No, I don't feel safe. No, I'm not going to do it. Will they, or would
I,
they
I
get mad?
I actually think if I had just gone back to him and said, nope, I didn't like the looks of this, and from having been held up the night before, I think I could have gotten away with it.
Yeah.
But I do feel some sort of blame on that, even though I'm being told, no, it's not your fault.
And I will add to that. No, it was not your fault.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
That was not your fault.
Yes. So over the courses of years of hiding it and holding it in, it brought back all sorts of different memories and stuff like that.
Right.
I fought with some same-sex attractions.
Right.
I fought with the depression and the anxiety. As I got older and my kids got out of the house, things got a lot worse because a lot of the activities that we did with the kids were like slowed down. The kids were involved with Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts, so we were very involved in Boy Scout, Girl Scouts, along with me working. So it gave a lot of time that I was doing things that it wasn't in my head. But as I got out of the house and it was just me and my wife, I got more and more into my head. And then I got this idea that, no, I'll just start some self-medicating. I'll jump back down to my high school age. In my high school age, I had a slight drug issue. When I say a slight drug issue, I used drugs through a good portion of my high school years and before I got married to my wife. But then I got clean of the drugs when I got married to my wife, and I experimented once or twice with them afterwards, but not really anything too heavy.
And this was before the pizza incident, right? So what prompted you to use drugs? Sometimes there's other stresses and so forth.
Yeah, I'll get back to the purpose of the thing. The only reason I bring up about the drug addiction was when I started deciding to self-medicate, I knew I didn't want to do drugs. So I turned to that thing called beer and wine, and then that turned into hard alcohol, that turned into whiskey. And so it got to the point where I wasn't physically drunk, but I was making sure I had a good buzz. And I wasn't drinking out in the public. I was drinking more at home and isolating more and more to myself. It got to the point where people started noticing a lot of my depression, a lot of my anxiety. People were starting to hear about some of my suicidal thoughts. And I had actually attempted twice. And
Attempted suicide.
attempted suicide twice. And then things started going a little bit better. I was traveling a lot for work, and I got out of that traveling job and I was working locally or relatively local to where I live, where I was really on a hybrid type of a job where I could do some of my work remotely and some of the work was on site at customer sites. I'm a field engineer, so I go out quite a bit. And then some of it was in the office that we were working at. And it got to the point where I finally relayed to the boss what was going through my head and stuff like that. And we kind of decided that it would be good for me to take a step aside for a moment to work on myself. So I found a residential program for mental health. And one of the very first questions they asked is, are you an addict? Are you drinking a lot? And I'm like, no, I'm not an alcoholic. I'm not an addict. I just have some thoughts and things that I just have to work on. So while I was in the program, in the residential program, the very first thing they found out by talking to both me and my wife was that yes, I was drinking quite a bit. And I had to make that hard decision to say, yes, I'm an alcoholic. And yes, I have to work on that along with some of the other issues that I had. So while I was in the residential program, I got involved with AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, a program. Previously to that, I had been going to Celebrate Recovery even before I went to the residential program. I tried two different Celebrate Recovery programs, and the one I was in for about maybe 3 weeks, and I just didn't like it, and I got out of there. And then I went to a different program, and I had been there for about a year. But as my wife would say, I would come home from it, and right after I'd come home from it, I'd be opening up a bottle and pouring the Coke and the whiskey together, and I'd just be drinking again, and never really took any of what I was hearing or doing from there very seriously.
Right.
But while in residential, that's when I really decided that, yeah, I do have a problem with the bottle and I have to get that squared away. But while there, we were having a session on something and I broke down. And I revealed the sexual assault that happened when I was 26 years old, back in 1992. So that started my journey of actually listening to what I was thinking and starting to find a solution or find a way to start working through it.
Right.
So when I left the residential program, I did find a male counselor in the state that I live in. I live in Pennsylvania, so there was a male counselor that I found that specializes in men that have been sexually assaulted, both youth and adult-wise. And up to that point, I was just revealing about what happened when I was the adult, what happened with the attack and all of that. And the job I had that was local, I ended up losing that job. It was kind of a mutual decision to do away with my position and for me to leave. It also made it a little bit hard because it was a family-run business. My brother was the owner. It was a business that I helped them start. And I'd been in and out of that business multiple times.
Right.
And I ended up back working on the road as a field technician, and that's what I'm doing now.
So why did they let you go? Just they economy or whatever? And
He was, between the two of us, we both said that I was spending too much time working on myself, and he felt it was affecting my job. And he wanted to move me to a different type position. He said I was in too much stress on the job that I was in. I was an operations manager doing all the scheduling and that kind of stuff.
right.
And it was just kind of, it kind of worked out for my benefit, losing that job and going back out to do what I'm doing again, out on the road. Being out on the road as a field engineer, I love working with my hands, always have.
Right.
I've worked so many years in the computer industry, both behind a desk and also out on the road, and I hate sitting behind a desk. I love being in front of the customer and love working through problems. So I ended up starting to travel again, and I'm still traveling and planning to still stay traveling. So this year I was flying home on a red eye, coming into the Philadelphia airport from another airport. And while I was on the airplane, I was asleep, minding my own business in a window seat. And a gentleman right next to me decided that he was going to start rubbing his hand up and down my leg. And it worked out for his benefit that it's one of the few times that I actually had my seatbelt on. I usually break the airplane rules and don't always wear the seatbelts.
Right.
I don't usually like it, but I had my seatbelt on that day. And if I hadn't, I don't know what would have happened on the plane other than he probably would have been a very bloody mess. But I yelled out, and the flight attendants immediately came over. They moved the gentleman, and then when we got to Philadelphia, both me and the gentleman was escorted off the plane by police. Statements were made, and at that point, they asked me, would I be willing to press charges? And I looked them straight in the face and said, yes, I will press charges on the gentleman. The gentleman was an older gentleman. And the one thing I heard while I was in the office with the police department was his wife yelling at him, saying, I can't believe you did it on a plane, which indicated to me that he's done this before.
Right.
So it kind of gave me a little bit of hope that, yes, you can look at the person who has done something to you and said, no, that is not cool. That is not right. And it gave me
Right.
that hope. It has been turned over. It's a federal offense now. It has been turned over to the FBI. It's an active case.
How many years ago was this?
It was
Okay.
Saturday, January 18th of this year. So it is an active case with the FBI because it happened on a plane while we were up in the air. So that was the most recent attack. I had all sorts of emotions and stuff like that. I mean, it really triggered a lot of the mental health things, but I
Right.
made sure I talked to people about it. I didn't tell them details or I didn't tell them everything. My therapist knows, my wife knows, but not many other people know about that attack also.
Right.
And during that period of time, a video was sent to both me and my brother and my sister of a church that my father was a pastor at. And my brother was talking about, oh, what wonderful memories he had of that church, and my sister was saying how nice it was also. And I just had this really sick feeling when I saw the video, and I didn't know why, but something just did not make sense. Something just didn't sit right with me. So I just kind of kept that to myself. I didn't spoil my brother or my sister's emotions about, oh, it was a great place and all that. But I told my wife, and I had also told my counselor that something just doesn't sit right with this video with me. And so we worked on it and weren't coming up with much of anything. And just in March of this year, my father, who is still living, he got sick and he was running into some issues with his memory, dementia, Alzheimer's type of a
Mm-hmm.
thing. And he wasn't making a lot of sense with a lot of things he was saying. And the
Right.
one night while I was there sitting at the hospital with him, trying to work to get him out of the hospital and back home, he made a statement to me that basically said, why did I allow the church elders to abuse me in front of him the way I did? And it just brought back such a bad memory and
Mm.
vivid memory that just started flooding in on me.
Wow.
When he said it, I was just taken back so much. And like I had to walk away because I had so many different bad feelings. I mean, I
Right.
had the homicidal feelings, I had suicidal feelings, I had a severe hatred, and I just had to walk away. And I took a walk, I called my wife and I told her what he said. And she was like, you're kidding. I'm like, no. And so for the next 2 days, I had these flashbacks that were coming back, and I was remembering things from back when I was 14, 15, 16 at this church. And it's the flashbacks were coming back really strong, and just things that I had never thought of in years, things that I had just kind of pushed back in my memory were being pushed forward. And then two
Right.
nights later, I'm back at the hospital with my father, and we're sitting there, and he's talking his nonsense. And then all of a sudden, he gets all serious, and he starts telling me everything that was happening, everything that I was seeing in these flashbacks. So it kind of validated that whole period right there in that time.
Right.
I was also during the period where I said I would get back to about the drugs. I was back during the period when I started doing the drugs, any experimental type drugs I could get my hands on. I was a very big weed head. I would also take any type of pills that I could get my hands on and just kind of numb myself throughout. My father got out of the hospital and we were talking afterwards, and I really have a hard time right now because I've been raised that you're supposed to honor your father and your mother. And
Mm-hmm.
he's 91 years old, and all of a sudden he's talking about what happened many, many years ago. And it's like, I'm looking at him saying, how could you let this happen? How could you allow it to happen?
And that honor your father and mother, it does not mean obey, especially as an adult. It does not mean you can't question them on anything. It's just honor them, and you can honor them in lots of ways. Like my own father was my abuser. So, yeah, I can honor him by being a much better father to my own children. And so there's ways you can honor that scripture without, doesn't mean obey. Yeah, a lot of people put too much weight on that. but you can honor them in different ways without condoning bad behavior.
Hmm. Yeah, so when he got out of the hospital and I got him home, along with my brother and all that, he was sitting, and he was getting much better with his memory and stuff like that. And he briefly said to me, but we haven't really been able to sit down privately, just me and him. But he briefly said, I'm sorry for anything I may have said while I was in the hospital. I'm sorry that that information has come out. And but then he got distracted because someone else walked into the room. So I've been really having that hard looking at it, saying, what type of boundaries do I have to have? I mean, it's right now working with my therapist on it. It's been a really tough, that one has been really a tough nut to crack, because that one
Absolutely.
I can say it was not my fault, because I
Right.
was a child. I was forced into something that I could not stop at that particular moment. So that to me, I have a whole different healing thing. So what I've been working with is I've really been working hard with my therapist since residential program. Basically, I've been dealing with the same therapist about twice a week. I'm opening up to him about different things, and he's been working through different things, EMR, just straight talk, and then also some other different principles and theories that they come up with for healing and stuff.
Okay. When you said EMR, do you mean EMDR?
Yes, EMDR. Sorry. Yes, he tried a little bit of EMDR. He's not tried the EMDR since we've just started talking about the childhood. But he said once I told him about that, that was starting to make a better sense of the timeline and better sense of what all was happening as to why I didn't report when I got attacked at 26, and
Right.
why I would have reported it just this year when I got attacked or assaulted. And so I mean, it's I've been working through on that. I've also been sober for almost 2 years, working with AA, and that's really been helpful to stay sober. Really watching what I'm doing and trying to catch when I'm going into that spiral of a downward thing in the depression, and where I start trying to isolate to myself and stuff like that.
Right.
So I mean the healing it's hard, especially when I'm being told, yes, it was not my fault back when I was 26, when I was attacked. And as I've alluded to pretty well, I've been told that, but I'm still having a hard time believing that. I mean, a lot of people just keep telling me you were not responsible, but I still hold myself responsible for that. As the childhood stuff, I can't hold myself responsible for that. The last attack, I can't hold myself responsible for that. I was asleep. Some creep decided he was going to do something, and he screwed around with the wrong person. But it's I have seen that it affected not only my life, but it has also affected my children's life. It's affected my wife's life. It's affected my whole family life. And that's
Absolutely.
the one thing that I'm trying to get the healing on. And I mean, even my kids, they don't know about the sexual assaults. I have not told them that yet. And I know that one of my kids has a story of their own also. And I'm being very cautious of how and when I'm going to reveal. I'm looking to see, how can my story help someone else? How can my story help someone that's a lot younger, that they don't go the same path that I did. They don't become the workaholic, that they don't become where they just draw into themselves and try to self-medicate, whether it be drugs or whether it be alcohol or even any other substance that you can overindulge in. And I'm trying to figure out how I can use that story for the benefit of someone else to help them, but at the same time, as to how much healing that may give me and help me in the healing process. So that's really the basis of my story.
Excellent. So thank you so much for sharing. There's a lot there. And I know for those who were abused, even if you have it repressed, there's still that sign above your head, victim, 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 that you don't even realize is there, that other perps can smell the victim on you. And I had a similar situation where I was 20. I had blocked out all the abuse I had and had a minister sexually assault me as well when I was 20 in college. And it wasn't until another 10 years that I started remembering the abuse by my father when I was a child. So yeah, that's common. It's like I said, they can smell the victim on you,
Right.
and they're just adept at that, which is sad, which is why so many victims, survivors often have multiple perpetrators, because it's like they have a sense, they can smell that victimhood on you, sadly, but true. So with that, what have you done to help heal? It sounds like, yeah, these memories of childhood only came out like in the last few months, and you've seen a therapist, so, and they've tried different things. So, what other things have you tried that haven't worked, and what other things have you tried that have worked in your own recovery?
Yeah, in my own recovery, things that I had tried before, I said, of course, was the alcohol, the drinking. That did not
Right,
work. The
right.
bottle
Though
does not help
it helps
in
to
any
numb
way.
you to get to a point where you can find healthier ways.
Yes.
So, it's not a healthy coping mechanism, but it is a coping
Hmm.
mechanism, and
Yes.
you can honor it for what it is because it did help you get through till you find something better.
Yeah. Yeah. Really, the biggest thing that has helped me right now is having a therapist that understands the trauma, sexual trauma, and working through and explaining where he's trying to go with it.
Right,
EMDR, we worked with EMDR, and we were running into a blocking point and we weren't quite sure where it is. We ran into a blocking point there, so we went back to like a talk therapy and stuff like that. And in doing that whole thing, we we were trying to figure out what happened, and we realized that I had the repressed memories of the childhood attacks. So now we're working with the childhood attacks and I'm trying to make some sort of, what do I say, sense out of it.
so you still only have spotty memories of that, correct?
I have spotty memories of it. I have some very vivid memories of it, and vivid memories that my father has confirmed, even after the first time he said something. And the first time he didn't say too much, only just a little bit. And that's when the flashbacks came back
Right,
really bad. And then 2 days later, he said a lot more, and it was verifying what I was seeing in the flashbacks. So they were doing, so in doing that, we know that that is a valid memory
right,
on there. So it's memories that we're working through now and trying to get even maybe more out of it, more
right.
memories, break more memories open.
Now he mentioned that he was there and witnessed some of this. So why did he not try to step in to stop it? Because these were men in church leadership, or what prevented him from?
Yeah, they were men of church leadership. They were elders of the church,
And was this what kind of denomination was this?
Presbyterian, Reformed
Okay.
Presbyterian.
Wow. Yeah.
And he said he had witnessed it, but he didn't say he didn't stop it. So then the question is, if he didn't stop it, then what is his involvement in it? Or why would he not stop it? That's a big question. And it's I don't know whether I'm ever going to get a straight answer out of him. I don't know whether it's healthy to keep that relationship. But if I don't keep the relationship, then it's the question of how do I explain it out to multiple other people, to my kids, to my brother, my sister, to aunts, uncles, and things like that, without exposing what may have happened. So
Right.
it's so new, it's so raw that we're still working through a lot of the raw feelings right now. The attack that I went through when I was at 26, my it's not raw. It's just it's there. It happened. It changed my life in quite a bit. But this is making it's opened up such a raw wound that we're still working through as to how do we do it?
Right.
How do we deal with it? And what is the result of it? And I mean, my therapist has said, I mean, he could die tomorrow and I won't have all those answers. It's how I would then proceed from there. But I don't wish that on him, or I'm still trying to figure out how does that healing or that whole relationship continue. And that's what we're trying to work through right now. As I
Right.
said,
And
it's a really new thing that just happened, and we're still working through it.
right. And your father still has sketchy memory on and off, it sounds like, some dementia, so it's not always, he's not
Yeah,
always lucid.
when he gets sick, he's not real lucid. When he's not sick, he's relatively pretty good. I mean, for 91 years old, he's usually pretty good.
Right. Have you been able to ask him more about that and his involvement, or?
I have not been able to sit down with him privately to ask him, and that is what I would like to try to do, is sit down
Hmm.
and ask him
Right.
what his involvement was and why he would have allowed it.
Right.
And it's just kind of one of those things where you're opening up a onion, where you're peeling away the different skins, and as you get deeper and deeper into that onion gets stronger and stronger and stronger, and it's like, what have I just opened? What Pandora's box is opened, and where is it going to lead? And
Right.
that's the scary part of this whole thing.
Right, absolutely. And reminder, we do have a live audience, so if there's any questions from the audience, feel free to type that into the chat. And again, we will only state your name if you manually put it in with your question or comment. And anything else about your healing journey that you want to share?
The biggest thing is I was told for years and years and years that I'm a man, just suck it up, put on your big
Mm,
girl panties,
right.
and
They call that toxic masculinity. Yes.
that is such the bad advice to do. The biggest thing is if you're experiencing problems, if you're experiencing anything that's not right, go seek a professional. And that's one
Right.
thing I had to learn to do, is go seek a professional and really start to learn what all is happening. And it was very hard to learn that after all the years of real men don't eat quiche or that kind of stuff,
Right.
that whole male toxic relationship. But to
Right.
actually go and seek the help, don't be afraid to. If I talked to one or two other therapists and they weren't the right fit for me, they just were not the right fit. Health doctors, I've switched my family doctor totally. I have a psychiatrist that I'm dealing with, and the first one, I didn't agree with him. I thought he was a quack, and got rid of him, got another one, and that one wasn't much better, and then got a third one who I feel is really good. But you have to be willing to build the team behind you to
Right.
help in your recovery.
Absolutely. And yeah, sometimes it takes shopping around, trying someone for a few weeks and see how it goes and make sure that they're qualified and they're used to working with childhood trauma, specifically sexual trauma. Ask them what kind of different therapies they are trained in, because if you open up your toolbox and all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. So hopefully they have a bunch of tools in their toolbox so they can. That's what my therapist did. Love my therapist. He's gotten all kinds of different trainings on different kind of therapies to help deal with severe trauma like mine. And so he can pull all kinds of things out of his toolbox to help get me whole, and
Mm-hmm.
very effective. But it took time to get him, and to find him. So they are out there. It just takes some looking, and for sure, yes, that's, don't be afraid to quit your therapist. If they're not giving you what you need, then continue on for sure, because they are out there, and sometimes, yeah, there's not a good fit, and you have the perfect right to fire your therapist if they're not getting what you need, if they're not trained. And sometimes they are not trained to deal with this unless they are. And many are not. And maybe think, sure, I can help you. And they realize, crap, I'm kind of out of my depth, and that they don't have the training. And they can try to help you, but you really need someone who knows what they're doing and is familiar with these types of severe trauma that don't heal overnight. And there's all kinds of residual stuff, especially when you're looking at repressed memories and so forth. There's a lot there For sure. So, what are you doing now as far as your own healing or just life in general?
Life in general, I mean, I'm traveling again, so I have to be very careful as I'm traveling that I don't fall into some of the gotchas that I did before when I was traveling with the drinking and stuff like that. I'm also making sure when I'm traveling, if I'm not doing very well, my wife is coming along with me so that there's someone else with me that I can talk to.
Hmm.
I'm on there. She's not my therapist, she's my wife, but yet she is someone that has some compassion and some love. And sometimes she just says to me, hey, you need to talk to a doctor, you need to talk to a therapist, or you need to do this or you need to do that. And sometimes she even just recommends that I just need some green time where I go out backpacking and just get out by myself out into the nature to get grounded again. So I'm making sure to be vocal and not hold it all in, making sure to make the appointments and actually keep the appointments for the doctors or for the therapist. 2 times a week gets to be a pain in the ass talking to a therapist, but right now that's what's working. And when I miss those times, I can tell. I can really tell.
Right. And early on in my own healing journey, yeah, up to twice a week, and then eventually was able to drop to weekly and then every other week, and then it stretches. And now I'll go months at a time and I don't see him, but if I need something, he's still there.
Mm,
And
yeah.
we'll have a little session, and it works really well because, yes, stuff happens. And yeah, all that trauma, it doesn't always go away. And sometimes it rears its ugly head and you got to deal with stuff. So
Hmm.
having that support system is so important. So I'm so thrilled you have that in your life, and a wife too who gets it and can be there for you, and you realize, yeah, this is going to be really triggering. Yeah, let's bring the wife in. Yeah, she can help. I love bringing my wife to different things. Oftentimes it's like, no, just stick me in a hotel, I'll be fine, you go do your thing, have your meeting, come back, I'll be here chilling. And it's wonderful to come back to the hotel and have this loving wife. Yeah, I love that when she does that. So yeah, that's great that you have that. Absolutely. We do have a comment from the audience. It says, Peter, thank you for sharing. I hear so much trauma. So sorry for all these bad things that happened to you. You are so self-aware. Great job on your recovery. Yes,
Thank you.
absolutely.
It's taken quite a while to get that self-awareness and really to work on the recovery. And
Right,
recovery is one of those things that you need to make sure you get involved with.
right. Absolutely. So any final thoughts for that listener out there who's a survivor?
The biggest thoughts I could give to people is don't hold it in. When you hold it in, it just destroys you. It just takes you down the wrong rabbit hole. Find a therapist, find a support group, find the 6 people that are going to be the pallbearers for you that will help carry your casket out for you. But find those people that can be very valuable to you to help you with your recovery and seek the recovery. It's well worth it. It hurts, but it's well worth it as you're going through it.
Absolutely. And hopefully you won't need those pallbearers for a long, 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 long
No, no,
time.
I don't plan on
But
having those
yes,
pallbearers for quite a long
it's
time, but
friendships, it's important to develop those. And it's so
yes,
hard when we've dealt with trauma, and especially when it was by men. So, yeah, you have a love hate relationship with men in general, and
yes.
it's hard to trust and develop friendships. So, yeah, I completely get that. But yes, it is key. It is very healthy to develop those healthy friendships with other men. That's going to help you heal as iron sharpens iron. Absolutely. Yes. Well, thank you, Peter, for your time. And again, if you have any questions, if you would like to join us live on future episodes, you can learn more how to do so at polarlifeconsulting.com/live. And with that, we'll see you next time on the Healing for Male Survivors podcast. If you would like to learn more about my coaching with Polar Life Consulting, where I provide one-on-one coaching and group coaching, both with a focus on healing for male survivors, reach out to me at polarlifeconsulting.com. That is polar spelled Polar. I would love to hear from you. I want to hear your story. If you would like your story featured on this podcast, contact me via my website. If you like this podcast, please rate and review because that's how other people can find me, and I really want to spread this message of healing and hope to others. And remember, you are not alone. Healing is possible, and the abuse was not your fault. Let me repeat that. The abuse was not your fault. See you next time on the Healing for Male Survivors podcast.